Yeah, what the rationale is it's really a management program to help, there's a lot of things that occur naturally that affect the insect population, from its natural predators to all kinds of things. And one pretty subtle one is if you have an increase in West Nile virus and you have a decrease in your bird population, there'll be fewer birds to eat them. And I mean, there's all kinds of natural variables involved in this. So it's really sort of an annual thing. It isn't going to go away. And our philosophy has always been to try to manage it at the level where we don't see problems with the trees. In other words, we don't see mortality in the trees. And with the oak trees, for example, healthy ones, they can withstand some defoliation over a period of time, depending on their health and a lot of things like that. But the basic idea was we recognized early on that this isn't the silver bullet. This is a management tool. Spray it with the facility. So that the goal was to identify the areas where the potential impact was the greatest and spray those. And that kind of moves around, generally moves around. We'll see what happens with this, To me, that's going to be the most interesting thing, to see what happens to this portion of the forest reserve. Now, I didn't look at the whole forest reserve, because it's like a lot of acres. But you look at the distribution we had. The problem was obviously the prevailing westerly and southwesterly winds that kind of move this way. That's kind of the philosophy of it. The reason that we monitor these things and check all the calls is so we have the most accurate information we could have. There's going to be places where there are some residents that I think probably spray their own properties and do those kind of things. But in terms of the village program, the question is, what's the reasonable management level? I mean, I personally have not seen a tree here that I felt was killed by this problem. Okay, I haven't looked at every tree in the Chicago region, but we've been looking at this since the mid-'80s in Lincolnshire. We worked for Lincolnshire in those days, and they had a system where anybody that moved to town, when they got their water service turned on, they had to say the county they came from. If they came from specified counties, we went and inspected all their stuff, and that's something we could do here too. If we have residents that are coming here, we have residents moving around, you could do that. But I think the real issue was right outside our door, and that's.
Well, with this management program, let's say I know today that I have gypsy moths on my trees and my area is not deemed to be sprayed this time. When or how soon could I expect that they might get back to my area? How often do we rotate?
Well, I think it's the same. Let's make the assumption we have the continuing problem over here. So that would indicate that we want to spray this buffer zone we put up. My suspicion would be if we still have that problem, we're still going to have that problem in a portion of this area. So it's a question of within the budget that we're going to spend is where we move it around. We make the decisions the same way. We look at the addresses. We look at each of these 40-acre management units we have and make an assessment. And let's say we had more than we normally would that we thought were equal. That's the presentation we make. It's our job, to point out the issue, and then the board first makes a decision. And it does move around. This is the first year we've had a constant from the last time we sprayed. So my suspicion is that if that problem went away, then we'd have the ability to go further. I think it's what we're going to have to deal with. So based on spending the amount of money we'd be spending with this program, we could do that's about 400 acres. So we do the same process to pick those spots. That's why I wanted a 40-acre management unit, because it's a reasonable size management unit.
So you're talking about a constant buffer area and then rotating throughout the village in other additional hotspots.
Do the same assessment, where are the problems, and presenting that to the board and saying, here's what we have, and what's the balance between that and the dollars. And the whole process, to residents, all sorts of things. So I think that's still a valid concept. If it gets to be a village-wide thing, that's something that we'll have to talk about at that time. But I think the approach we have is valid. We're not going to get rid of it, and so we manage it to the point where we don't have damage, persistent damage to our trees in those areas. So I would expect to move it around.
I'm sorry. And are the hotspots determined by the traps or people calling in or both?
Well, the traps are just tell us where to look. All these things tell us where to look. It really, the key thing is people calling in, because that targets us in a region. Now, we get one resident calls, we'll look in that neighborhood. You know, but when you get 10 residents right next to each other, like we had in some places, that's a pretty consistent thing. And it's a pretty interesting insect. And when you watch them do their thing, it gets pretty intimidating. That's really the process. So it's basically the decision, the recommendations are made on resident calls, and then the egg mass. So, I mean, we looked at a lot of places with egg mass, and actually the biggest concentration was right here, with really salt. And we looked along Duffy Lane, we looked all over the place, and that's how we bounce those things together, because you could have insects, and the egg masses hadn't found, like this section we sprayed last year, we didn't find any egg masses in here. We had all these caterpillars. So there's a leading edge to this someplace. So the trick is to figure out how far the females have advanced. That's where the egg masses come into play. Because you can have we trap males in every trap we put out, some more than others, but the females aren't that far, and that shows up on the map. You can tell it on the map.
Rich?
Yeah, I have Chuck, perhaps you could stay standing. I have really two issues, and one of them is this. I spent a little bit of time. I took the addresses of people who telephoned in last year. Last year was a bumper crop, as we all know. And I colored them in on this map. And although there, as you say, there is a concentration here in South and Southwest Riverwoods, we had a number of calls all the way up to Duffy Lane. So my first question is, do you really think that, I mean, we're picking a number out of the air, 400 acres. Given this, do you think that it should be a larger number or a
I put a number on that map you have right there, and it was $130,000, using $50 an acre.
Right.
That's basically
If
what that area
we cover
represents.
this entire area.
Yeah, the majority of that area, yeah.
Right.
The majority of that area was $130,000.
So now, but I guess my question is, you're picking $40,000 given this map.
Right.
Do you think that that is an appropriate beginning for this management plan that you're suggesting?
I think it is, and it comes down to this question what I was looking for initially was a comfort level of the elected officials from a budgetary standpoint. What's the comfort level? And when it gets to $130,000 a year, and you do this for 5 years, you spent $500,000 and some dollars. Okay, so that's not really my decision to make. It's my decision to say, here's what my recommendation is, and I think that's kind of the process we went through. You know, maybe the board will look at this and say, well, maybe it ought to be 60, but you're never, unless you want to spend that kind of budget, you're not going to touch the whole village in 1 year. You know, you're not going to touch the whole village in 1 year. So.
Well, it's clear that, you know, here we are at the 11th hour. We're reconsidering something that the board considered twice in previous sessions, and we're reconsidering it for clear reason.
Sure.
I think what this calls into play is that I think is a resolution that we ask you to develop a methodical approach,
Sure.
The Riverwoods Management Plan, so that we don't do this again at the 11th hour.
Well, let me suggest this to you. Maybe nobody wants to hear this, but if you said to me, our comfort level is $60,000, or pick a number, whatever it is, I could do that.
You can spend whatever we'll give you.
Well, exactly. I could do that. That's not a problem. But we go through the same prioritization system. In other words, you know, the same kind of inspection, same kind of thing. So to me, it's you know, the ball's in your court, quite frankly, because that's exactly right. It's whatever the comfort level is. If the comfort level's $100,000 a year, that's because you can do that. You can do that every year.
I agree with you. That's one side of the equation.
Yes.
The cost of it is one side of the equation, but the other side is effectiveness.